I'm Riley Connors. I'm 29, work in cybersecurity, and up until last week, I thought my family still saw me as one of their own. But when I walked into my childhood home and found it full of relatives laughing, planning, passing around cake and no one had told me to come, that's when it hit me. I wasn't just missing the party, I wasn't part of it anymore. Have you ever felt like a stranger in your own family photo? Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever been the one quietly erased. Because what happened next showed me why family isn't always about blood, and sometimes, being left out is just the beginning. Let me rewind so you understand exactly how it got to this point. I wasn't expecting much from a Tuesday night. Just a reheated burrito, a backlog of client files, and maybe one decent show to stream while I reviewed firewall logs. The call from my dad came just as I was running a security sweep on a dental clinic server. "Hey, kid," he said, his voice scratchy, like he'd been working on something dusty again. "Hey, Dad, everything okay?" I asked, stretching my legs out on the couch. My laptop hummed beside me. Silence. Just long enough to make my stomach tighten. "It's about Madison's wedding," he said finally. I blinked. "What about it?" Another pause. Then he exhaled like he was preparing to read me my own last rites. "They've finalized the guest list. And, look, Riley. Her in-laws. They think it's better if you don't come." The words didn't land right away. They just hovered, stupid and surreal. "Wait, what? I'm her sister. I'm supposed to be." I stopped. I wasn't even sure what role I had anymore. Maid of honor? Bridesmaid? A seat near the aisle? Dad cleared his throat. "They're saying you don't really fit with the image they're going for. You know how these rich folks are. Appearances." "Appearances," I repeated, stunned. "Are they planning a wedding or curating a museum exhibit?" "I'm just the messenger, Rye. Don't shoot me. Does Madison even know you're telling me this?" Another pause. "She agrees," he said, quieter. "She said it's complicated. The Roths are covering the whole event. She doesn't want to push back and risk." "Risk what? Her napkin color scheme? A champagne fountain?" My voice cracked. "It's not like that. They've got influence, Riley. Sterling Roth's company has government contracts, connections, Madison's career." "My career is already happening," I snapped. "And no one handed it to me with monogrammed stationery." He sighed. "She said she'd make it up to you after the wedding. Maybe a small family dinner or—" I hung up. Not out of rage, at least not yet. I just couldn't breathe. I sat there, blinking at the wall, the glow of my laptop screen washing over takeout containers and half-sorted laundry. I was cut out of my own sister's wedding. Not because I'd done something wrong, but because I didn't match their decor. I grabbed my phone and dialed Madison. Straight to voicemail. I texted, "We need to talk. Now." Nothing. 10 minutes later, I tried again. No response. That silence said more than anything she could have texted. I scrolled back through our last few messages. Weeks ago. One emoji replied to a photo I'd sent of my DIY home office upgrade. The last time we actually talked on the phone. 2 months back. She mentioned cake tastings. Never once said I wouldn't be there. I stared at my bookshelf, the one I built with Mom before she got sick. One shelf was still uneven, just slightly, but she made me leave it. Said imperfection was a kind of signature. I felt like that shelf now. I reached for my laptop again. Madison had mentioned her wedding site once, a planning portal she shared with her bridesmaids. I typed in the domain. Password protected. I tried her birthday. It opened. And there it was. A beautiful, curated timeline of our journey with floral headers and a countdown clock. Photos of Madison and Julian. Tablescapes. Seating charts. And the guest list. I searched for my name. It had been there once. I could see the faint R. Connors deleted line next to reserved row 2. Now it was gone. I refreshed the page. Still gone. I wanted to scream, or laugh, or punch something. But all I did was shut the laptop. And stare. I wasn't mad she had new people in her life. I was mad she erased the one who helped her build it. Back in high school, I stayed up every night for 2 weeks helping her write her college essays while holding down 2 jobs. When she cried after Mom's funeral, it was my lap she curled into. And now? She traded me for a table of donors in bow ties. I picked up the photo off my desk, the one from her law school graduation. Me in jeans and a hoodie, holding a bouquet twice my size. Her in cap and gown, tears in her eyes. I remembered what I whispered that day. I told Mom I'd always be there for you. But now she didn't want me there. And somehow, that hurt worse than any hacker ever could. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at that blinking cursor, staring at that single, empty space where my name used to be. It didn't feel like a guest list, it felt like a verdict. One day, I was her big sister. And the next? Just a crossed outline in a digital seating chart. I stared at the faint gray strike-through like it owed me an explanation. I didn't even realize I was crying until a tear hit the trackpad and the page refreshed. Still gone. I clicked back to the main site. There it was again, Madison's face, full of joy and perfectly filtered glow. Next to Julian, with his movie star grin and trust fund posture. I hated how good they looked together. Not because she was happy, but because she didn't need me to get there. And suddenly, I couldn't breathe in my own apartment. I slammed the laptop shut, grabbed my keys, and drove. Didn't know where I was going until I was already parked in front of Dad's. His porch light was on. Of course it was. He always leaves it on for guests. Just not the kind who get deleted. I didn't knock, just opened the door like I always used to. He was in the kitchen, flipping through some mail with a beer in one hand and his reading glasses halfway down his nose. He looked up, startled. "Riley? You knew?" He froze. "Come on in, sit." "You knew? For weeks." I didn't yell. I didn't have to. His face told me everything before his mouth moved. "I was hoping she'd change her mind," he said finally. "I didn't want you to find out like this. So your plan was what? Wait it out. Let me figure it out when the wedding photos showed up online?" He didn't answer. "Jesus, Dad." I dropped into the kitchen chair across from him. Same chair I used to sit in after school. Same one where I cried the night Mom passed. Now, it felt colder than ever. "She's ashamed of me," I said, not asking. "And you're okay with that?" "I'm not okay with any of this," he said, voice low. "But it's her life. She's worked hard." "I worked hard," I cut in. "I picked up her late-night phone calls, covered her rent when her scholarship ran out. Do you remember that?" He flinched. "I do." "Do you remember who held her when she found Mom's letter? Who stayed up with her the night before her bar exam?" "I remember everything, Riley. I do." But he didn't look at me when he said it. Just stared down at a stack of supermarket coupons like they mattered. I leaned back, chest aching. And now she's cutting me out like I'm some embarrassment. She says it's not personal. The Roths. I laughed. Just once, bitter. Not personal. But I'm the one not invited. He exhaled and rubbed his face. They think you're rough around the edges. Not exactly their circle. And Madison thinks that too, or she wouldn't have let them do it. Silence again. God. That silence was louder than any screaming match we ever had. "She said," he began, carefully, "that she knew you'd take it this way." I stared. "She said you've always been a little jealous of her opportunities." "And that? That broke something." "I worked 3 jobs to put her through college," I whispered. "I skipped college so she could go. I've never asked her for anything." "I know," he said. "No. You don't. Because if he did, he wouldn't be sitting there, justifying it." He looked so small in that kitchen. Smaller than I ever remembered. And me? I felt like I was watching my last bridge burn down in real time. I stood. "You can tell her congratulations." "Riley. Number. Really? I hope the seating chart looks great without me on it." I didn't slam the door when I left. That would have meant I still cared if he followed. But the truth is, I didn't know if I wanted him to. I drove for a long time. Windows down, just letting the cold Indiana wind numb my cheeks. My phone buzzed in the passenger seat. A text from Madison. Dad shouldn't have told you, it's complicated. That's all she said. Like cutting out your sister was a minor scheduling issue. I didn't respond. Not right away. Instead, I pulled over into a dark corner of the old high school parking lot, where we used to sneak snacks after debate team and talk about someday. I pulled up the wedding site again. This time, I scrolled through the whole list. Business partners, law firm associates, Julian's rowing coach. Even his parents' interior designer made the cut. But not me. And not Dad either, I noticed. His invite was still pending. No +1. It hit me then. This wasn't just about appearances. This was about erasure. About polishing the parts of your life you wanted to display. And scrubbing out the ones you didn't. I clicked save on the guest list. Saved it to a secure folder on my desktop. Just in case. I wasn't always an outsider. At least, I didn't feel like one. Until the night I met the Roths. It was last fall. The leaves hadn't even turned yet. I remember that because I wore a deep green wrap dress I'd found on clearance, hoping it would pass for chic in a room full of silk and teeth. Madison had invited me to dinner at Julian's parents' estate, said it would be casual. I should have known better. The Roth estate sat behind a black wrought iron gate like a secret no one wanted to share. Their driveway was longer than our old street back home. I remember pulling up next to a valet and realizing, yeah, I was out of place. Dad had rented a blazer for the night. I could see him fidgeting with the collar as we walked up the steps. He looked proud. I felt like an imposter. The front doors opened before we even knocked. A woman in crisp black and white, some kind of household staff, took our coats like we were entering a museum. Inside, everything was cream and gold and unnaturally quiet, like the house didn't want us there either. Gregory Roth met us at the base of the staircase. Firm handshake. Thin smile. The kind that doesn't touch the eyes. Robert, he said to Dad. Madison tells us you're retired now. Sort of. Took an early buyout when the plant closed. Just helping out at the gas station now, Dad said, trying to sound upbeat. Gregory nodded, like he'd just read a label on something expired. Interesting. Then he turned to me. And you're the tech one, right? What is it you do again? I work in cybersecurity, I said. Mostly systems audits, digital infrastructure protection. Ah, he said. So, like, tech support? I smiled, tightly. Not exactly. Before I could finish, Lorraine Roth glided down the stairs. She kissed the air near Madison's cheek and offered me a smile so polished it could have been plastic. She looked me up and down. Not long, but long enough. I love how confident you are with your look, she said. That sentence stayed with me. Not the words or tone. Like I was playing dress up in someone else's clothes. We were seated at a long, glass dining table under a chandelier that probably had a name. They served something with truffle foam on top. I didn't touch it. Neither did Dad. We were both nursing water like it was whiskey. Julian asked me polite questions about firewalls and phishing patterns, but I could tell he was just filling space. And Madison. She kept looking at me, then at them, then back at me like she was bracing for impact. That's when it hit me. She was nervous about how I'd act. Like I was the one who might ruin something. I barely spoke for the rest of the meal. When Lorraine started talking about a charity gala she was hosting, Madison leaned in, all smiles. She mentioned designers, seating arrangements, donors. She didn't mention the mom who worked double shifts at the diner to buy us matching Easter dresses. Or the sister who braided her hair every morning when she couldn't get it to part straight. By the end of dessert, I felt like wallpaper. As we left, Madison gave me a hug in the entryway. They just need time, she whispered. They're a little old-fashioned. I wanted to believe her. But the look Gregory gave me as we walked out told me everything I needed to know. We were the price of admission. And she was already calculating how to cover the cost. Now, sitting in my apartment with the hum of my laptop in the background, I pulled up that night's photos. Of course, Lorraine had posted them on Instagram, captions something like, "Blessed to welcome new family." I zoomed in. There was Madison, radiant, Julian, grinning, Gregory and Lorraine, flanking them like bookends. And me? I was there, off to the side, barely in frame, smiling too big, standing just far enough away to be cropped out cleanly. I stared at the photo until my eyes blurred. And in that moment, I understood something that stung worse than any uninvited RSVP. It wasn't that I wasn't good enough. It was that they'd never looked closely enough to see me in the first place. I couldn't stop staring at that photo. Every time I blinked, it was still there on my screen, like it was daring me to see what I hadn't before. But it wasn't the half smile on Julian's face that bothered me, or Madison's arm perfectly wrapped around his, like she was already part of the Roth furniture. It was the comments. Dozens of them. From people I didn't know, but apparently Madison did now. So elegant. True power couple. She's practically royalty now. Royalty. Meanwhile, I was sitting cross-legged in sweats, eating leftover spaghetti from a plastic container. And for some reason, I opened a second tab. Old habit. When things hurt too much, I analyze. I opened up the wedding website backend again. Not to check my name, been there, done that. I went deeper. The portal was built on a third-party system I'd used before. Not secure. Not really. Madison probably didn't even change the default settings. So I logged in as a planner. No password required, just a known exploit in the calendar sync. And there it was. Full access. Vendor contracts, budget spreadsheets, travel arrangements. I didn't mean to snoop. At least, that's what I told myself. But then I saw something weird. A line item under Gifts for Guests, with a charge of $11,900. For custom monogram timepieces. Not just for the bridal party, this was for the Roth inner circle. And right below it, a reimbursement request. Submitted by Julian. Approved by Madison. Something didn't sit right. I scrolled further. Another flagged invoice. Venue booking listed under a company name, JTR Consulting. Owner? Julian Thomas Roth. He wasn't just marrying into money. He was billing his fiancée's wedding back to himself. And that's when my pulse changed. This wasn't just about me anymore. I started pulling public records. Quick checks, LLC filings, licensing boards, business reviews. Nothing illegal. But enough smoke to wonder if there was fire. I opened a secure folder on my desktop. Labeled it, Roth Audit. Old instincts kicking in. And that's when I remembered something. Years ago, Madison had gotten scammed out of $400 by a fake internship site. She was devastated. She cried in my bed for 2 nights. Said she felt so stupid. I stayed up till 3 a.m. tracing the domain registration, pinging the hosting server. Got the whole thing taken down by the end of the week. And when I handed her a report with screenshots and IP logs, she looked at me like I was some kind of superhero. "You should work for the CIA or something," she'd laughed. But now? Now I was just the embarrassing older sister in thrift store heels. The shift stung. But it also focused me. I wasn't trying to ruin anything. I just wanted to understand. I clicked open Julian's business site. It looked legit enough, corporate speak and stock photos. But his portfolio? Thin. Repetitive. Several testimonials led to broken LinkedIn profiles. So either the businesses folded, or they never existed. I took notes. I don't know what I was hoping to find. Maybe proof that Madison had fallen for someone wearing a mask. Or maybe I wanted to believe she hadn't changed. Not really. That she just couldn't see what I could. I leaned back and rubbed my eyes. On my shelf was a little glass box Madison had given me after I helped her pass statistics in college. "For your brain," she'd said, "and for always outsmarting the system." That fox caught the glow of my desk lamp, casting a sliver of light onto my wall. It was so small. Easy to miss. But that light cut through everything. Like truth does. I looked back at the screen. The Roths might have money, reputation, connections, but they'd underestimated something. Me. I didn't sleep much the night I opened the Roth audit folder. Not because I was scared, because I wasn't. I was awake. And that kind of awareness doesn't let you drift off easy. The next morning, I woke to a text from Madison. Hey, don't forget, brunch at Lorraine's, 11 sharp. There was no question mark. Just a pastel emoji that said, pretend everything's fine. I stood in front of my closet with a tight jaw and zero desire to play nice. But I showed up anyway. Lorraine's house smelled like polished wood, white lilies, and the kind of perfume that only comes in glass bottles with French names. Every detail of the Roth family brunch was curated down to the handwritten place cards with gold calligraphy. Mine said, Riley. With a Y and an E. Madison noticed it the second I picked it up. Oh shoot, must have been the planner. I'll fix it. I just smiled and set the card back down. No need. Let them misspell me. Let them misplace me. That morning, silence was my strategy. Lorraine floated through the room in a champagne pink sheath dress, complimenting floral centerpieces and kissing cheeks with surgical precision. She passed by me with a half smile and no words. And somehow, that said more. Julian gave me a nod from across the room. The kind people give their Uber driver, not their future sister-in-law. And Madison? She was dazzling. She always had that gear when she wanted to belong, she belonged. But I saw it. The way she tugged at her sleeve when Julian's mother corrected her on wine pairings. The quick glance she gave me when someone mentioned family dynamics and giggled. Her mask was slipping. But she didn't know mine was gone. Midway through the meal, Lorraine stood to present Madison with a family heirloom, some crystal serving platter passed down from Roth women to Roth women. Everyone cooed. Except me. Because I noticed something else. When Lorraine placed the platter in front of Madison, she said, to legacy. To knowing one's place in a long and valuable line. And that sentence. It lodged under my ribs like a sliver of glass. I glanced at Madison, who looked frozen for just a second too long, then smiled for the camera. Another micro-reversal. Another silent switch. I excused myself to the hallway and walked toward the guest bathroom. But I didn't go in. Instead, I stopped by the gallery wall. Dozens of framed family photos in elegant symmetry. Vacations, galas, charity auctions. And tucked near the bottom, one recent photo of Madison and Julian engagement shoot, probably. Perfect lighting. Matching ivory. I leaned closer. That same glass fox sat on the table behind her, blurry in the background. She brought it with her. My throat caught. That little symbol, the one she used to say reminded her of me, was now staged as part of her new life. And she hadn't said a word. Suddenly, I wasn't sure if that meant she still held on to me, or if she just used the fox like everything else, for optics. I stood there, breath shallow, long enough for Julian to appear beside me. Nice photo, huh? He said, too casual. I didn't respond. He leaned in. Just a little. Everything okay, Riley? His tone was soft. But it wasn't concerned. It was probing. Testing for weakness. I turned slowly to face him. Everything's lovely, I said. Really. It's all coming together beautifully. A pause. Then he smiled. Just slightly. That smug, knowing kind of smile. But I matched it. Because now I knew his game. And I had my own. The ride home from Lorraine's was quiet. I didn't play music. Didn't call anyone. Didn't even cry. It's strange how silence can be louder than grief. Back at my apartment, I sat on the couch and scrolled through old Photoshop looking for something, half daring myself not to feel anything. There was one from the summer Madison turned 16. We were on the back deck at Dad's lake house. She was in my hoodie, because she always stole my clothes. I had one arm draped over her shoulder and the other holding a sparkler. She looked happy. Not perfect. Just happy. No angles, no filters. Just two girls who used to be everything to each other. I closed the photo. My hand stayed frozen on the screen. And I whispered it out loud. She's not that girl anymore. The next day, she confirmed it. I stopped by her place not unannounced. She'd invited me earlier in the week to help with table arrangements. The florist was late, so it was just us in the kitchen, surrounded by ivory linens and wine glasses that cost more than my rent. She poured me coffee without asking how I took it. Then she asked, "Can we not talk about numbers today?" I blinked. "Numbers?" She glanced up. "Yeah, like spreadsheets and receipts. You've been kind of intense." I said nothing. She continued, "I just want this to be fun, you know? Not a math problem." And there it was. The quiet cut. She wasn't asking me to stop investigating. She was asking me to stop being me. I looked at the bouquet order sitting on the counter. Handwritten notes. Color-coded columns. She'd used my system, the same one I taught her in high school when she couldn't keep track of college apps. But now, my skills were inconvenient. Too sharp for her fantasy. "I'm not trying to ruin anything," I said. "I'm just seeing things that don't add up." She laughed, but it wasn't the warm kind. "Riley, not everything is a conspiracy. Sometimes, people just spend a little more when they're excited." I almost nodded. Almost let it pass. But then she added, "And not everything needs to be your battle." That part stung. Because for years, everything had been fighting for her when Dad favored his own silence. Fighting teachers who underestimated her. Fighting to get her into that out-of-state college when she almost gave up. I swallowed hard. "You think I like this?" I asked. She didn't answer. There was a pause long enough to be honest, short enough to be polite. She turned her back to rinse a glass. "Julian's under a lot of pressure. His mom's been writing him about the expenses. He's just trying to manage things." I stared at the back of her neck. "You mean, you knew?" She froze. Just slightly. Then, without turning, she said, "It's not a big deal. He's moving money between accounts, not stealing. His family does things differently. Differently. Like ethics were a regional preference." I stood up slowly. "You really think that's okay?" Madison finally turned to face me. Her voice dropped. "I think. I'm getting married in 3 weeks. And I don't want to start my life with a war." War. Not truth, not justice, not accountability. Just a war she didn't want to fight. I took a long breath and looked around her kitchen. Everything looked clean, expensive, and breakable. A small vase on the windowsill caught my eye. It was one I made in 7th grade ceramics class. Lopsided. Navy blue. She used to keep pencils in it. Now it held a single white rose, like it belonged in a catalog. The symbol hit me like a slow wave. I hadn't just lost her. She'd repurposed our memories to match a new aesthetic. That hurt more than any insult ever could. I walked to the door, hand on the knob. "I hope you get what you think you want," I said softly. "I really do." She looked tired. Not angry. Not sorry. Just tired. And maybe that was the saddest part. She didn't even have the energy to lie to me anymore. I stepped outside. The sun hit my skin. Warm, bright, indifferent. I didn't look back. Because I finally understood. The sister I'd loved wasn't here anymore. And the woman standing in her place? She wasn't coming back. I didn't cry on the drive home. Not even once. But I did pull over. Just outside town. There's this old trailhead I used to walk with Mom when I was a kid. I didn't get out. I just sat there. Hands on the wheel. Eyes on the tree line. And I said it out loud. She knew. Madison knew what Julian was doing. And she didn't care. That truth sat heavier than I expected. Like I'd been holding out hope without even realizing it. Back at my apartment, I poured a glass of water and forgot to drink it. Instead, I opened my laptop. Not to escape this time, to hunt. Julian's Family LLC had been quiet for months. No major moves. But I cross-referenced a few filings with wedding vendors Madison had mentioned. And there it was. A luxury rental deposit paid from a shell account based out of New Jersey. A floral vendor flagged for laundering through event consultation. And the big one. A boutique venue listing the pair as GR Holdings, Julian's mom's initials. I sat back. This wasn't just about money, it was about control. They were funding the wedding, but laundering Madison's independence in the process. And somewhere deep inside, I heard my mom's voice. Don't let love make you small, Riley. Real love expands you. I clicked out of the browser. And that's when I saw the voicemail. Dad. His tone was casual, too casual. Hey, Riley. Just checking in. Madison said you stopped by. Listen, sweetheart, I know things are complicated, but maybe don't stir stuff up right now, okay? Let her be happy, we'll talk soon. Let her be happy. As if I was the disruption. As if love meant silence. I replayed it. Twice. And with each listen, my jaw tightened. Dad had always been like this. Avoid the waves. Keep the family boat afloat even if it meant ignoring the leaks. I opened the drawer where I kept old files. Buried underneath was the leather portfolio I used in college. Inside, I found a printed copy of an old email Madison had sent me after Julian's second date. He's not flashy like the others. He notices small things, like how I hold my fork or how I breathe when I'm anxious. I remember thinking back then, that sounded sweet. Now it felt surgical. He didn't see her. He studied her. That email became my symbolic anchor. A moment frozen in time before the script flipped. And maybe, before she started rehearsing someone else's life. The next day, I met Dad for lunch. Neutral ground. Small diner. Coffee burnt. Booth sticky. He smiled like everything was fine. How's work? He asked. Busy, I replied. Then silence. He stirred his cream slowly. You know, he said, your sister's got enough on her plate. She doesn't need more stress. There it was. The same old nudge. Dressed in concern. She also doesn't need fraud, Dad. I said softly. His spoon clinked against the cup. I kept my voice even. I'm not trying to ruin her wedding. I'm trying to stop her from waking up one day and realizing she signed her life away. He sighed. They have money, Riley. That's just how people with money move things around. I stared at him. That doesn't make it right. He looked tired. Maybe older than I remembered. Sometimes, keeping the peace is more important than being right. I shook my head. Number. That's how we lose ourselves. One silence at a time. He didn't answer. But he didn't argue either. Which, from him, was almost a confession. When I got back home, there was a package on my doorstep. No note. Just my name in Madison's handwriting. Inside? A bridesmaid dress. Pale gold. Expensive fabric. And tucked inside was a card. Please just be there. That's all I want. I held the card in my hand. Let the weight of it sink in. It wasn't an invitation. It was a plea for complicity. I folded it carefully. Slid it back into the box. And I whispered, I'll be there. But not the way you think. Because I wasn't going to stand beside her in silence. I was going to stand for the truth. Even if I had to do it alone. The bridal salon smelled like peonies and soft panic. I stepped inside, heels clicking too sharply on the marble. Everything around me gleamed: mirrors, chandeliers, a team of assistants flitting between racks like well-dressed ghosts. Madison waved from the elevated platform in the center. Her dress sparkled under the lights like a fairy tale gone corporate. You made it, she called out, her voice sugar-dipped, a little too loud. 3 other bridesmaids turned to look at me. All matching curls, glossed lips, champagne in hand, like they'd been waiting to see if I'd show up or show cracks. I smiled. A small one. Just enough to be polite. Just enough to survive. An assistant approached with a white garment bag. Bridesmaid 3? She asked, eyes scanning a clipboard. Sure, I said, because correcting her felt pointless. Inside the fitting room, the lighting was less forgiving. The dress inside the bag shimmered pale gold, satin heavy, and, Strapless. My chest tightened. They knew I hated strapless. Even in high school, Madison used to laugh that I looked like I was always one sneeze away from a scandal. But here it was. The only one in my size. Supposedly. I undressed slowly, the way you do before a medical exam. Not shame exactly, just resignation. When I zipped it up, it stopped just beneath my shoulder blades. Too tight. I twisted awkwardly, trying to tug it up higher. The bodice pinched, digging into my ribs. I stared at my reflection. I looked like a guest in someone else's body. Just then, the door creaked. "You okay in there?" Madison called out. "Just a second." My voice cracked. She didn't wait. The curtain slid open halfway. She peeked in, eyes flitting over the ill-fitting dress. "Oh," she said, biting her lip. "Maybe you've filled out since the last fitting?" There hadn't been a last fitting. She knew that. But the other bridesmaids were watching from behind her. So I smiled again. "Must have been the pizza." Madison laughed. "Not mean, exactly. But not kind, either. You've got time to work it in. We've still got a week." Then she vanished in a swirl of satin and approval. I turned back to the mirror. And for a second, just a second, I didn't see me. I saw a little girl in our backyard, barefoot, veil made of tissue paper, holding hands with a younger Madison. We used to pretend the dog was the minister. Take turns walking down the garden stones like an aisle. Back then, the roles weren't assigned. We were just. Now? Now everything was assigned. Down to the neckline. I exhaled slowly and sat on the edge of the bench. The fabric wrinkled beneath me. I didn't care. Outside, I heard clinking glasses and the soft hum of someone's playlist, probably curated for Instagram stories. "Isn't that your sister?" one of the bridesmaids whispered. "Not mean, just curious." "Yeah," another answered. "She's not what I expected." I looked down at my hands. Still resting in my lap. Still minne. I stood up, unclipped the zipper, and slipped out of the dress. Hung it gently on the hook. Then I saw it. Inside the garment bag's pocket was a tag still attached. A size smaller than mine. And a sticky note folded underneath it, crumpled but legible. Not her style. Try switching with Lauren, she's curvier. Madison's handwriting. I stared at the note. Not angry. Not even surprised. Just. Done. I folded it in half, then again. Slid it into my purse like a receipt for something I'd never buy again. Outside, Madison was mid-toast, holding court like she was already married to her new last name. I stepped out of the fitting room and crossed the floor. The other bridesmaids turned. I could feel their eyes on my plain black tee and jeans. On the fact that I didn't match. Didn't belong. Madison caught my gaze but didn't call me over. She just smiled. Like we were in on something private. Like I was still playing along. I smiled back. One last time. Then I walked out. No fanfare, no fight. Just steps. Steady, quiet steps. The kind you take when you realize you're not losing something, you're finally letting it go. Madison's apartment smelled like vanilla candles and false comfort. I stepped inside holding the envelope tight in my hand, just a few pages, printed in black and white, but they felt heavier than truth. She didn't offer to take my coat, didn't even stand up. She sat perched on the edge of her bar stool, silk robe belted, makeup already done for a brunch that didn't exist. "Wow," she said, one eyebrow lifted. "I figured you'd text. Or ghost. I'll tain." I dropped the envelope on the marble counter between us. I found it in the planner's file folder. They left their Dropbox open. She didn't reach for it. Just sipped her coffee like this was a boardroom meeting. "What is it?" she asked, flat. "A payment schedule. Roth LLC is listed as a backer for your wedding. Every third-party vendor is being paid through them." Madison blinked once. Twice. "That's Julian's family's holding company." "I know." She still didn't touch the papers. I felt my voice tighten. "You said you didn't want his money involved. That this wedding was about love, not power." She looked down. Her lip curled slightly. That's what I told myself, too. And there it was. No shock, no denial. Just exhaustion in her tone, like she'd finally admitted the trade she'd made. I waited. Because the little sister in me still hoped for some thread of connection. But instead, she leaned back and crossed her legs. I'm not sure what you want from me, Riley. This graph, that stung more than it should have. I almost laughed. I don't want anything. I'm not here to fix you. Or him, or this. I tapped the envelope. I just didn't want to keep pretending. A beat passed. Then Madison reached over, picked up the papers, and tore them in half. The sound echoed like a slap. Happy now? She asked. You said it. You proved it. Can we move on? There was that word again, like we were still part of the same story. I stared at the scraps of paper on the counter. That doesn't erase what it means, I said softly. And you know it. She pushed back her stool. You just love a dramatic exit, don't you? You want to play the victim so badly. He blinked. That almost got me. The voice in my head, the one I'd grown up with, whispered, maybe she's right. Maybe you do escalate things too far. Maybe you are too sensitive. But then, I remembered that damn dress. And the note. And the years of being the family buffer, absorbing the silence like a sponge. So I took a slow breath. No, I said. I don't want to be a victim. I just won't be your cover anymore. Her face twitched. Just for a second. Like I'd nicked something beneath the surface. You know what hurts? I added, my voice low. It's not that you sold out. It's that you expect me to stay quiet about it so you can keep calling it love. She didn't answer. So I kept going. When Dad told me not to come to your wedding, I thought I was the problem. That maybe I was making things hard. I swallowed. But it wasn't about me. It was about keeping things clean, photogenic, marketable. I reached into my bag and pulled out the wedding invitation, thick cardstock, gold lettering, Madison and Julian's names embossed like royalty. I tore it in half. Then again. And again. I left the pieces on her counter like confetti from a party I was never invited to. Madison watched me. Still frozen. But something in her eyes cracked. Just a little. Like maybe, just maybe, she didn't think I'd actually do it. You're still invited, she whispered. It was so quiet I almost missed it. You can still come, she added, eyes suddenly glassy. You're my sister. I paused at the door. That word sister used to mean something to me. Used to feel like home. Now it felt like a borrowed dress that never fit. No, I said gently. I'm your liability. And I'm done being quiet just to keep your narrative tidy. One last glance. One last breath. And I walked out. Into the hallway. Into the cold. Into the truth. It was a voicemail. Not from Madison. From Cassie, her old college friend. The one who always called me Little Riley like it was still 2009 and I was tagging along in my sister's shadow. I hadn't spoken to Cassie in years. Not really. But there she was on my phone the next morning, her voice trying to sound casual, like this wasn't weird. Hey, just wanted to say, I saw what happened. Madison's pretty shaken. She said you were dramatic, but honestly, I think she needed it. Anyway, hope you're okay. She paused, then lowered her voice like someone might hear her. She said you always do this. Make a scene. Try to flip the story so you're the one hurt, but I don't know, the way she looked after you left. Silence. Then. She looked scared. I replayed that last sentence maybe 5 times. She looked scared. Not sorry, not ashamed. Just scared. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the cup of coffee I'd made but never touched. The smell reminded me of growing up, of Sunday mornings when Dad would read the paper and Mom would stand at the stove in her bathrobe, humming. Back when Madison and I were still on the same team. Back before everything was image and strategy and silence. Cassie's words kept circling me. She said you always do this. Always. Funny how quickly people box you in. You stand up once, and suddenly it's a pattern. You say no, and suddenly you're difficult. I opened my laptop without thinking, drawn by a name I hadn't typed in a long time. My therapist. From 4 years ago. Back when I'd moved out of that apartment and couldn't stop crying in stairwells. Her number was still saved. So was our last session note. You don't need to be forgiven to let go. You just need to decide you're done bleeding for people who won't even admit they cut you. I read it out loud. Soft. Like it wasn't meant for the air. Then I sat there, holding that sentence like a match I wasn't ready to light. The next twist came 3 hours later. A screenshot. Sent by one bridesmaid I'd actually liked. It was a group chat. One I was clearly not meant to see. 3 bubbles. 4 names. And 1 message from Madison. If Riley shows up anyway, someone needs to make sure she doesn't talk to Julian's parents, or the press, or anyone important. The press. I stared at that word so long it blurred. I wasn't a scandal, I wasn't even relevant. But somehow, I'd become the threat. Nora added 1 line with the screenshot. I thought you deserved to know. No emojis. No explanation. Just that. And, in that moment, something inside me stopped begging to be understood. All my life, I thought the hardest thing was being the one left out. Turns out, the real heartbreak is being the one who leaves. Because you don't just lose people. You lose the version of yourself that kept waiting for them to love you better. I stood at my window for a while, watching the way the wind moved through the trees like they were whispering secrets. Madison used to say fall made her feel cinematic. I used to think it made me feel alone. But this time, it made me feel clean. Like maybe some things were finally blowing away. Then, just as I turned to close the curtains, my phone lit up again. Unknown number. No name. Just a single text. I heard what happened. If you want to know what they said when you weren't in the room, I'll tell you. But you might not like it. I stared at the message. Then back at the window. Then back at the message. A part of me wanted to delete it. To stay wrapped in the silence I'd finally chosen. But the other part, the one that had survived too many polite betrayals, felt something else. Not fear. Not even anger. Curiosity. Because whoever this was, they were in the room. And I wasn't. I stared at the message. It didn't have a name, no photo, no hint. Just that line. If you want to know what they said when you weren't in the room, I'll tell you. But you might not like it. I didn't respond right away. I sat on my couch, phone balanced on my knee, a blanket wrapped around me like armor. The living room was dark, except for the soft light of the lamp I never replaced after the bulb dimmed a little. That lamp reminded me of how I'd been living. Not broken. Just dimmed. After 20 minutes of silence, I typed, "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. It doesn't matter. But I was at the rehearsal dinner. I heard what Madison said, and what your dad didn't. My heart dropped into my stomach. The rehearsal dinner. I wasn't even invited to that. I remembered Madison telling me it was small and family only, like I hadn't shared bunk beds with her for a decade. I typed back slowly. Then, tell me. A pause. Then. Madison said you'd try to hijack the wedding. That you're still obsessed with being seen, and if you showed up, she might have to remove you permanently. Remove me. Those were her words. Not avoid. Not block. Remove. Like I was something in the way. For a second, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it felt so far from who I actually was. I didn't want the spotlight. I just wanted the truth to matter. The next message came with a photo. A blurry shot of a folded place card at a table. My name was on it. Riley Table 3. It had a red X through it in Sharpie. They made the seating chart before deciding to tell you not to come. Madison said it was cleaner this way. Julian's mom asked who you even were. Something in my throat burned. Not because of what they said, but because a part of me had still hoped I'd misread the situation. That maybe I'd overreacted. That maybe, deep down, I was still wanted. Even a little. I texted back. Why are you telling me this? The typing bubble popped up. Disappeared. Came back again. Then finally. Because I know what it feels like to be erased. I didn't expect that. That sentence hit me harder than anything else. More than the lies. More than the Sharpie. X. Someone else knew. I asked. Were you one of Madison's friends? The reply. Not exactly. I used to be Julian's. Once. And just like that, something clicked. Not the name. Not the face. But the energy. The kind of woman Madison would have hated from the start. The kind that saw through charm. She told me her name was Lila. Said she dated Julian for 2 years. Said she watched him charm Madison like it was a performance and she was the only one in the audience. She said Madison changed around him. Started using words like optics and narrative. That part didn't shock me. But then she said something else. He asked her not to invite you. He said you were a wild card and Madison agreed. But it wasn't just about control, it was fear. You knew things about her no one else did. And he blinked. Not because it was wrong, but because it was true. I did know. I knew Madison didn't cry at our mother's funeral. She fixated on the floral arrangements. I knew she told her high school boyfriend I was adopted just to seem more pure. I knew she once erased my name from a family Christmas card draft because the font looked cleaner with just one kid. They were small things, petty things. But they added up. And they weren't just about me. They were about the version of Madison she wanted to show the world. Leela kept typing. She didn't cut you out because you're loud. She did it because you remember. I read that twice. Then 3 more times. And suddenly, the pain felt different. Not sharper. Cleaner. I stood up, walked to the old bookshelf by the hallway. There was a framed picture tucked behind some novels. Me and Madison. Summer camp, age 9. I was smiling wide, cheeks sunburned. She was half turned away, looking past me, toward something just outside the frame. That photo used to make me sad. Now, it felt like proof. I'd been right to feel unseen. Because I had been. Lila's final message came just as I set the photo down. You don't owe them silence, just don't let them decide your ending. And that was it. No goodbye. No plan. Just a mirror I hadn't asked for. But needed. Badly. I parked across the street from the venue. The lot was already full. Guests wandered in wearing pastel dresses and fitted suits, laughing in clusters, holding tiny envelopes and clinking to-go coffees. I stayed in my car. It wasn't raining, but the sky had that quiet, cloud-heavy hush, like it didn't want to interrupt anything. The hotel was dressed in white florals, wrapped in silk ribbons that fluttered in the breeze. Somewhere inside, a string quartet was warming up. I could hear the soft plucking of a cello when the wind shifted. And through the glass doors, I saw her. Madison. She was in a pale ivory gown fitted at the waist, delicate sleeves like whispers. Her hair was pulled back, polished and regal, just the way our mom used to wear it for Sunday dinners. She looked still. That was the word that came to mind. Still, but not soft. I watched her place one hand on Dad's arm. He didn't even glance toward the parking lot. Of course he didn't. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. Because somewhere between that rehearsal dinner and this moment, something had shifted in me. I wasn't hoping she'd change her mind. I wasn't hoping someone would rush out and say, Riley, wait, there's been a mistake. I just needed to see it. With my own eyes. Not for her, for me. In the glove box, I'd tucked an envelope. Inside was a photo. Us as kids. I was 6. She was 4. We were covered in glitter glue and holding a cardboard crown we'd made for Mom's birthday. On the back, I'd written, You were magic. You still are. I hope you find your way back to her. I held it for a long time. Long enough to feel the trembles start in my hand. Then I stepped out of the car. I didn't walk toward the chapel. I walked to the mailbox outside the venue. Slipped the envelope inside. Raised the flag. And that was it. No speech. No tears on marble floors. No slamming doors or dramatic exits. Just A woman in a navy dress, standing in heels that pinched, with wind in her hair and a memory in her hand finally letting go of the weight. I turned to leave. But then I heard it. "Riley?" Her voice. I froze. Slowly, I looked back. Madison had stepped outside. She stood under the archway, veil trailing behind her like a secret. Her eyes searched the street, then locked on mine. Neither of us moved. She didn't call my name again. She didn't cry or ask me to come in. And I didn't wave. Didn't speak. Just looked. Looked at the girl I used to braid hair for, sneak cookies with. Shield from thunderstorms. She looked beautiful. And far away. After a few seconds, she turned. Walked back inside. The doors closed behind her. And, somehow, that was enough. Not because she saw me, but because I finally saw myself. Not as the forgotten sister. Not as the problem to manage or the guest to uninvite. But as a woman who showed up. Fully, quietly, completely. For no one else but me. I walked back to my car. Opened the door. Saturday in the driver's seat. And smiled. Just a little. Because this time, I didn't disappear. And I never would again.